and all the blue ones have been fed. Then after that, I already did this because my phone died last night. Just throw away the trash bag in the trash can in the garage if you could, so it doesn't stink up the house. And then if you could, fill up the food bowl that had the crested gecko powder food in it in the left sink with soap and water in, and just let it soak so it doesn't like dry and get stuck to it. And that's it. Okay, so in my room, there's the whole shelf of gecko stuff, but you only need this tray, which I just will set right here on my bed. These tongs, and this powdered form of gecko food. So now bring these downstairs, and also this Ziploc bag with a tiny bit of calcium powder in. The calcium powder is in right here. So if it runs out, you can always just dump a little in there, but it should be fine for while I'm gone. So what you do is the super worms there in the garage, they go in this, but I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so once down here, you just need to go and grab this small bowl and a teaspoon. With the gecko food powder, it is 1 part gecko food powder, 2 parts water. So, you know, like with every 1 teaspoon of this, it is 2 teaspoons of water, and I always do 2 teaspoons of the powdered food because that's enough to feed all the crested geckos. And the crested geckos are frugivores, and so they're the only ones who eat this powder. It is better to just have the water running instead of putting a bowl underneath. Just fill up a teaspoon and dump that in. This is the 3rd one because I already did one before starting the video. And so you just mix it up and make sure all the powder gets fully mixed in. So it's all liquidy like this, and then they lap it up once you give it to them. So now you take the plastic bag with calcium powder in it and the tongs into the garage. From inside the garage you go to the right, past the wheelbarrow, and then you will see an empty litter box that's full of worms. So basically, I feed my 2 leopard geckos 6 total, not 6 each, so they each get 3, and they're in the same habitat, so I just put 6 in their bowl. So I'm just going to pick out 6, but I can't do that with only one hand. Once they're in the bag, which they are, it is good to just kind of shake it around a little bit, just to make sure the calcium gets all over them, so that when they're in the food bowl, you know, they give the lizards calcium when they're eaten. Now everything is ready to be brought upstairs to them. Okay, so I labeled all of the gecko enclosures with a post-it note, and in parentheses below it, I put the food that they eat. So leopard geckos, they eat worms, the super worms that are in this Ziploc bag that were from the garage. This is a crested gecko, so he obviously eats powder. Another crested gecko, and it's color-coded too. Then this guy is a Chinese cave gecko, and I feed him last, and he gets fed crickets. Oh, but I put a caution on this one. His name is Frogger, because he is very fast and jumpy, so when he gets out, it's difficult to put him back in, so later on in this video, I'm going to show you how I catch him and put him back in. So first, I'm going to pull out cream to feed. What I do is I put him here, open this up, Here is his empty food dish. So with the empty food dish, I'm going to put it in the trash bag. It's just like an old grocery bag that I use for any sort of gecko trash. And I am going to try to remember to leave an empty one over here, like this one. But in case I forget, they are right below here. I keep them over here, and paper towels in case anything spills. So now that we just threw away the food bowl, we go grab another one, and they are kept right in here. I have a Ziploc full of bottle caps. So we just bring one over, we get one out, and then I put, you don't even have to fill it up completely, because they won't eat the whole thing if you fill it up completely. Just put like a sizable drop like that. Not that much. Like that. And I try to put it where they won't be above it, so they don't accidentally like defecate into it from above. Yeah. Then I do all the rest of the crested geckos, and then I'll show you what I do after that. Okay, this is Frogger. I put the warning on his thing because he is fast and very jumpy, and sometimes he just likes to run straight out. So I'll show you how he acts. Also, he also likes to hide underneath the paper towels, and same with a few of the other ones. So if you try to look in here and it doesn't look like he's there, just hold this up above you and then look underneath it, and you'll see a little gecko smushed up against it. So this is how he moves. Very fast. And once he goes like, there we go. He goes like that. So the normal way you get a crested gecko is you kind of slide your finger underneath their chin, and then they should hop onto crawl up onto your hand. With him, he doesn't do that. So what you have to do is you have to cup your hand around him. Takes a few tries sometimes. And kind of pick him up. I'll try to do that again where you can see it more. You just kind of have to grab him without squishing him. And go like this. And then when you're holding him, you put him in here. But sometimes he doesn't want to stay in there. So like he's crawling up right now. So you kind of have to grab him and then tilt him down while holding your thumb kind of on the top of his head. Not trying to like press his head down or anything against your other finger. You are just trying to aim it down so he's not looking up and not trying to go up. That usually makes him go back down. But then, so you just kind of have to be aware of where he is and if he's trying to get out or not while feeding him. But otherwise, you feed him normally. Then I do all the rest of the crested geckos, and then I'll show you what I do after that. Okay, this is Frogger. I put the warning on his thing because he is fast and very jumpy, and sometimes he just likes to run straight out. So I'll show you how he acts. Also, he also likes to hide underneath the paper towels, and same with a few of the other ones. So if you try to look in here and it doesn't look like he's there, just hold this up above you and then look underneath it, and you'll see a little gecko smushed up against it. So this is how he moves. Very fast. And once he goes like, there we go. He goes like that. So the normal way you get a crested gecko is you kind of slide your finger underneath their chin, and then they should hop onto crawl up onto your hand. With him, he doesn't do that. So what you have to do is you have to cup your hand around him. Takes a few tries sometimes. And kind of pick him up. I'll try to do that again where you can see it more. You just kind of have to grab him without squishing him. Go like this. And then when you're holding him, you put him in here. But sometimes he doesn't want to stay in there. So like he's crawling up right now. You kind of have to grab him and then tilt him down while holding your thumb kind of on the top of his head. Not trying to like press his head down or anything against your other finger. You are just trying to aim it down so he's not looking up and not trying to go up. That usually makes him go back down. But then, so you just kind of have to be aware of where he is and if he's trying to get out or not while feeding him. But otherwise, you feed him normally. Just an FYI, on Pocket's enclosure, the locks are up here and there, and so you just twist them to the left to unlock them, but you have to do it to both of them. And then to the right to lock them again. Oh, and on Pocket's enclosure, I keep these little loose lids covering most of the mesh on top, because otherwise the Okay, so when handling them, please just make sure to not pull on their tail, because if you pull on it, they'll drop it and they won't grow it back. And it can also, you know, be dangerous to them, like they can get an infection or something from the open wound. So please just be careful. Also with Jiggy G's enclosure, the big one at the foot of my bed, I put her food bowl on this shelf up here so that she can get to it. And when she jumps on the shelf, she doesn't accidentally flip it. Okay, so I am going to keep the leopard geckos here on the bed while I'm gone, but please just make sure to keep the cap back on, even though they're not arboreal like the crested geckos. They actually can climb up the walls and out of the enclosure if the lid's not on. So what I do in here is I take out the food dish, and over here, the leopard geckos, they only defecate in a single corner that they choose, and this is the corner that they have chosen. So I'm just going to move their hide and this paper towel, and I just tear a piece of a paper towel and put it in the corner for them. So I can just take this out, put it in the trash bag I have over here, and then I just tear a new one. I take like just a regular one and I tear it in half, and then I'm just going to pause it. I tear the half sheet of the paper towel into this kind of shape so it slides right in the corner over here, which is what I did with this one. Also, don't worry, none of the lizards will bite you. They're very docile. And even if they didn't, wouldn't hurt, because they're not strong enough and their teeth are not sharp enough to actually do anything. It just feels like you're being lightly touched. Okay, so now just put all 6 of the super worms you grabbed into the food dish. And try not to put just like pure calcium powder in there if you could. So, you know, like only grab the worms is what I'm trying to say. But it doesn't matter if a bunch of extra gets in there, because it's good for them either way. So once all the worms are in here, just put the food bowl back in this corner, and there's a little ledge right here, so just make sure you kind of, it's not falling down. Oh, and then finally the last, well, not the last thing. Next, you just take out the water dish, and you dump out the water inside and just fill it up again. So then, of course, you just put it back in there. After that, you grab the spray bottle that is right over here. So, you know, you just pump it a few times. Alright. Now, you just open this little box, Well, you spray inside of it. I can't really do that with one hand recording. I just sprayed it down, but after you do that, you go to each crested gecko enclosure and mist it down. You only hold the button down in each of them for like 2 seconds to make sure you don't get it so wet that it molds, but wet enough to where they can lap up the water and the humidity is high enough for them. So you just do that with all of them, and of course double check to make sure that these are closed so they can't get out. Oh, and then once you're done with this, I'll show you what to do. Okay, so once you're done with this, you actually have to unscrew it really quick to release the pressure, and then you can screw it back on tight. But you have to do that, otherwise the pressure will cause water to start coming out of here and it'll just keep leaking and get everywhere. I found that out the hard way. Now you can put away the food, the tongs, the calcium powder in a bag, and the bag of bottle caps that I use as food bowls in a tray if I haven't already said that. And I just set this aside on my desk until I'm done, then I bring it downstairs and then let it soak in the dishwasher or wash it or something. So after doing that, it's time to feed the very last one. His name is Hades, the Chinese cave gecko, and he's fed crickets. He is also not dangerous at all. He's actually quite small, and the crickets, they are kept right over here in the critter keeper, the one with the orange lid. And there's a very specific way I put the crickets out in the enclosure. I'll show you in 1 second. First, what I always do is I move the cork bark so as not to accidentally squish him. I set it up here. Then I take his water bowl to dump out and fill with fresh water. This is him, by the way. He is very, very tiny. And he also doesn't like being touched, so if you could try to avoid touching him, it would be great. And make sure you don't accidentally put the cork bark on top of him, because that would be bad. Okay, so I just set that back in there, carefully lift this up, and then put it back in like so, where I have the front up here kind of resting along the water bowl, so it's up at an angle, so it's like an actual cave for him. This is still moist for the crickets to drink water off of. This is the cricket food, and the reason I do this is so that when the crickets are in here, they actually can survive for a while, so he has time to hunt all of them down. So to put the crickets in there, what I do is I have to just pop the sides first, so I can take the lid off easily. There we go. And once I do that, I lift it up, put it on top of the cork bark, knowing he's over there. Then I take off the lid, and they're all around in here, so I'm kind of able to just... so none of them are on. No, there's one on here. If they're on here, if they're on this, just move this over here and shake it out. But if they're not, you can just set this aside. And there's not one on this either, so I can set this aside. And it's going to cement it in place. So now there are a bunch there. So you just kind of tilt it like this and start shaking it a bit, and then they'll start running and walking off. Oh, they're up in this corner now. So yeah, this is pretty much how you have to do it. And the reason you can't do it while the tub is outside is because they can get away and like start hopping around the room. So that would not be good. But if there's still a lot of crickets in his enclosure when you guys get here, you don't have to You don't have to feed him. If you just get him water, if there's still crickets running around in there, that'd be great. So after doing that, you just make sure all the corners are fully pushed down. And then you take it and you just put it back. And you put his lid back on. And he goes back. Okay, and that's it. As long as you make sure that, just double check that all of the enclosures are closed fully and that all the blue